Hello everyone, and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're in for a fascinating dive into a topic that I'm sure many are interested in, sleeping
And
well.
not just sleeping, of course, but sleeping well naturally and safely.
Exactly, because sometimes falling asleep can be a battle, and many, well, turn to solutions that in the long run can be more problematic than beneficial. I mean, benzodiazepines. Are they effective for short-term sleep? Yes. But we know that long-term use can lead to dependence and unwanted side effects.
Absolutely. And that's where today's main focus comes in. Casozepine, a compound many associate with veterinary
Calciozepine.
medicine. But it's sparking interest in human health, especially in
And
Asia.
why it's of interest in the cases of PINA.
Well, preliminary studies suggest it could improve sleep quality without the side effects of benzodiazepines.
Good provider?
Imagine sleeping well without worrying about dependence or negative effects. It'd be revolutionary, but let's break it down. What exactly is casozepine? Where does it come from?
It's a bioactive peptide, a small molecule with biological utility, produced when alpha-casein, a protein from cow's milk, is digested.
So something in the milk, when digested, turns into this casozepine. And what happens then? How does it work in our body?
Studies suggest it might act on the GABA receptors in the brain. These receptors are like tiny locks that regulate neural activity, and casozepine would be like a key that activates them, inducing relaxation and calm.
Wait, GABA receptors? Isn't that how benzodiazepines work?
Exactly. The interesting thing is that casozepine seems to modulate these receptors more selectively. This could explain the lack of side effects. That is to say, the benefits of benzodiazepines without the risks. That's really good news.
It certainly is a very promising line of research.
All right. If casozepine is extracted from cow's milk, then a glass of warm milk before bed will help us fall asleep.
Well, it's not that simple. The amount of casozepine in natural cow's milk isn't enough for a noticeable effect on sleep. The research focuses on obtaining higher concentrations of this compound for therapeutic use.
I see. And speaking of milk, what about goat's milk? I've heard it has special properties. Could it be another source of casozepine or similar compounds?
That's an interesting question. A recent study looked into the effects of goat's milk in mice with chronic stress, and the results are fascinating. Goat's milk reduced anxiety and depression symptoms in the mice. It also improved their sleep quality.
Incredible. And why is that? Does it contain more casozepine than cow's milk?
Not necessarily. Goat's milk has a different composition than cow's milk, with higher levels of certain nutrients, like whey proteins and vitamin D. Plus, it contains a unique type of casein, which could produce even more beneficial bioactive peptides.
So goat's milk might be an even richer source of sleep-promoting compounds, even if they're not exactly casozepine.
Exactly. This study opens a new path for research. Who knows what other secrets goat's milk might hold?
Indeed. A fascinating field. Going back to casozepine, what kind of studies have been done in humans to evaluate its effectiveness as a sleep aid?
Several studies have been conducted, especially in Japan, where there's a lot of interest in casozepine. One of the most relevant is a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. It showed that administration of a casein hydrolysate containing casozepine significantly improved sleep quality in people with sleep disorders.
That sounds promising. So what did they base their claim on that sleep quality had improved?
They used a standardized tool called the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. It evaluates different aspects of sleep, like sleep latency, duration, efficiency, sleep disturbances, use of sleep medication, and daytime dysfunction. In short, a comprehensive view.
I like that. A holistic approach. And what concrete results did they get?
The participants who took casein hydrolysate, rich in casozepine, experienced a significant reduction in the time it took them to fall asleep. They slept more hours, their sleep quality was better, and they also reported less sleepiness and fatigue during the day. Quite a success.
That's fantastic. And the best part is no side effects.
Exactly. This study, along with others being conducted, gives us an idea of the huge potential of casozepine as a natural alternative to improve sleep quality.
Is it without a doubt? An encouraging piece of news for everyone looking for natural solutions to sleep better.
And even though research in this field is still in its early stages, the results so far are very encouraging.
And with that, we conclude the first part of our insight into the world of casozepine and sleep. In the second part, we'll analyze in detail the scientific studies supporting its efficacy. Don't miss it.
Let's continue with casozepine and its potential to help improve sleep. As we mentioned, this compound has attracted a lot of interest for its potential benefits without the side effects of traditional insomnia medications.
And although there's still a lot to investigate, the studies already done give us very interesting clues about how casozepine could revolutionize the way we tackle sleep problems.
Absolutely agree. Let's talk about one of its studies, the one we mentioned in the first part, published in the Open Sleep Journal. It analyzed the effects of a casein hydrolysate containing casozepine on people with sleep disorders.
Yeah, I remember. You said they used the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index to measure effectiveness, right?
Yes, exactly. The PSQI is a very comprehensive tool. It assesses various aspects of sleep, not just the duration, but also latency, efficiency, sleep disorders, use of sleep medication, and daytime dysfunction.
So, they didn't just look at whether they slept more or fewer hours, but also the quality of that sleep and how they felt during the day.
Exactly. And the results were quite revealing. After 4 weeks of taking casein hydrolysate, participants experienced significant improvements in several parameters assessed by the PSQI. For example, there was a significant reduction in sleep latency, meaning the time it took them to fall asleep. This is great news for those who spend hours tossing and turning before falling asleep.
Totally. It happens to me sometimes, and it's frustrating. What other benefits did they see?
They also noticed improvements in sleep duration and habitual sleep efficiency, meaning they didn't just fall asleep faster, but also slept longer and made better use of their time in bed.
And how does this translate to everyday life?
Well, participants reported feeling more rested, with more energy throughout the day. They also experienced reduced sleepiness, fatigue, and difficulty concentrating, which are common symptoms of daytime dysfunction.
So, the bear sleeps better at night and has more energy and focus during the day. A double benefit.
Exactly. And all of this without the side effects usually associated with sleep medications.
It's really promising. Now, this study focused on a casein hydrolysate containing casozepine. There are studies that have analyzed isolated casozepine.
Yes, actually, there's a very interesting study published in the Journal of Functional Foods. It investigated the effects of casozepine in mice subjected to chronic stress.
Stress? Yet another big enemy of sleep.
No doubt in this study, they induced chronic stress in mice using a model called unpredictable mild chronic stress. It involves exposing animals to a series of mild but unpredictable stressors over time, simulating the kind of stress many of us face in daily life. I
see. And how did they evaluate the effect of casozepine on the sleep of these stressed mice?
They used different behavioral tests, like the tail suspension test, the open field test, and the sucrose preference test. These tests measure the animal's response to stressful situations and allow researchers to assess if casozepine has any effect on anxiety and depression. And what results did they find? Mice that received casozepine showed a significant reduction in immobility during the tail suspension test, which suggests an anxiolytic and antidepressant effect. Additionally, they displayed improved exploratory behavior in the open field test.
Which indicates a greater ability to face new and challenging situations. So casozepine not only improved their behavior under stress, but also might have a positive impact on their mood. Exactly.
Next question. How does this anxiolytic and antidepressant effect translate into sleep quality?
Of course, because stress and anxiety are enemies of sleep.
Precisely. Although this study didn't measure the sleep quality of the mice directly, the results suggest that by reducing anxiety and depression, casozepine could create a more favorable environment for restorative sleep.
Makes sense. If you're calmer and more relaxed, it's easier to fall asleep and sleep deeply.
Exactly. And this is a very important point, because many of the sleep problems we have are related to stress and anxiety.
So we could say that casozepine works on two fronts. On one hand, by modulating GABA receptors in the brain, and on the other, by reducing anxiety and depression.
That's a very interesting hypothesis. It's possible that casozepine acts through multiple mechanisms to improve sleep quality.
Fascinating. And speaking of multiple mechanisms, you mentioned earlier that goat milk might contain other beneficial compounds for sleep besides casozepine. Has this been researched in depth?
Yes, there's a study published in the journal Nutrients. It analyzed the effects of an alpha-C1 or casein hydrolysate, which contains casozepine, on the sleep quality of Korean adults with poor sleep quality. What's interesting about this study is that it focuses on a specific population, Korean adults. It gives us an idea of how treatment responses can vary based on genetics and lifestyle.
I see. It's important to consider population diversity when evaluating the effectiveness of a treatment. What were the results of this study?
The results were very encouraging. Participants who received the casein hydrolysate experienced significant improvements in several sleep parameters, including increased total sleep time and sleep efficiency, meaning they slept more hours. And their sleep quality was better.
Fantastic. And how was sleep quality measured in this case?
Both sleep diaries, where participants recorded their own sleep patterns, and actigraphy, a device that measures movement during sleep, were used. This provides a more complete view of sleep quality, both from the participant's subjective perspective and from an objective measure.
It's a very comprehensive methodology, and the results, as you say, are very promising.
Without a doubt. And most importantly, these benefits were seen after just 4 weeks of treatment, suggesting that casozepina could be an effective short-term solution for improving sleep quality.
This brings us to a key question. Is anything known about the long-term effects of casozepina?
That's a fundamental question. Unfortunately, most studies so far have focused on short-term interventions.
Of course, it makes sense that most studies focus on the short term. However, for casozepina to be a real alternative to insomnia medications, we need to know if its benefits hold in the long term.
Exactly. That's one of the big questions for future research. We need long-term studies that evaluate the efficacy and safety of casozepina in different populations and with various doses.
And not just that, it would also be interesting to investigate if combining casozepina with other natural compounds could enhance its effects.
Totally. For example, the combination of casozepina with L-theanine, an amino acid from green tea which is also linked to improved sleep, could be studied. Imagine a natural formula that combines the best of both worlds.
That would be fantastic. Speaking of possibilities, what other research avenues do you find promising in the field of casozepine and sleep?
Well, besides the long-term studies and combinations, I think it's crucial to investigate the mechanisms of action of casozepina in more detail. We still don't know exactly how it interacts with GABA receptors in the brain, or what other neuronal pathways might be involved in its effects.
Sure, understanding better how casozepina works at the molecular level would allow us to optimize its use and develop more precise and personalized therapies. Exactly. And let's not forget the importance of studying the effects of casozepina in different groups. For example, it would be interesting to investigate it in older adults, who often suffer from insomnia and are more sensitive to the side effects of medications.
No doubt it's a research field with enormous potential, and even though there's still much to discover, the results are very encouraging.
Totally agree. If casozepina delivers on its promise, we might be on the brink of a new era in sleep disorder treatment, an era where safe and natural solutions take the place they deserve, an era where we can say goodbye to insomnia without having to worry about dependency or side effects. Exactly. And not just that. By better understanding the mechanisms that regulate sleep, we could develop more comprehensive strategies to improve our health and well-being in general. Because in the end, sleeping well isn't just about resting. It's about living better.
Totally agree. Restful sleep is fundamental for our physical, mental, and emotional health. And if casozepina can help us achieve it, we will undoubtedly be taking a big step towards a fuller and healthier life.
And with this optimistic vision, we conclude our dive into the fascinating world of casozepina and sleep. We hope this information has been useful and inspires you to keep exploring the potential of natural solutions to improve your well-being.
Until next time, and sweet dreams.